Skipping the recap. Episode 6 opens on a nuclear detonation. Only it's not a real one. Nope, this is a marketing pitch to have a number of detonations over LA on billboards to stoke up fear and the purchase of places in their vaults. Next presentation is the water control chip, which the presenter states has a 30% failure rate, but they can tell ahead of time which ones will fail. Only 1 minute and 20 seconds in, and we already have a problem. If a chip has a 30% fail rate, that means that over the course of their lifetime use, 30% will fail. What the presenter is saying is that 30% of chips are made substandard and designed to fail. If they can detect what chips will fail before installation, as he says, there is no excuse to have them that way. Just discard the faulty ones and use functional ones. But I guess this is just old wacky goofy vault-tec. Why fix a problem when you can just have 30% of your vaults either die of dehydration or abandon their experiments to go onto the surface to find water, right? This defeats the point of the experiments, unless you want 30% of your experiments to be finding out what people do when there is no water. Next up is Bud, who is pitching building VIP highways for premium customers so they can get to the vaults quicker. Barbara is getting more and more frustrated with each pitch, and we get a splash screen telling us that this is, contrary to what you may think, Barb. Anyway, Mr. Ground Floor Apartment is next, with Hank stepping in to take notes. GFA shows the mind control chip, calling it the Automated Man. Bob does not understand, thinking this is an experiment he wants to run in the vault, which, according to episode 1, it was, as there was Vault 24, I think it was, that had people being brainwashed into thinking they were communists. But no, you see, this is GFA selling the tech to vault-tec in exchange for cold fusion, which throws up in the air of who exactly was in control of Vault 24. Was it Senor Bungalow refining his mind control tech? Or was it vault-tec? We already know they were working on miniaturizing it in their underground facility, so who knows. Anyway, meeting's over. Barbara closes the blinds to the office and sits down to look at a family photo in order to remind herself as why she's doing this. One title screen later, and we are with the impaled Ghoul Howard, and the point at which he has been impaled has changed. In the previous episode, it was right through the middle. Now it is just to the right of the middle. Anyway, he cannot reach his vials, so he asks Dog to get the satchel. Dog instead gets his hat and then pisses off, all while Ghoul Howard is starting to go feral. This whole scene is set to the joke backdrop of nobody in Freeside giving a shit and just going about their daily business as if impaled men are an everyday thing. Cut to pre-war though, with Cooper and Barbara in their hotel room. Cooper reminisces about their wedding day before asking if Barbara always was a monster. This of course raises her hackles, but he says war never changes, and spills that he knows what was said in that meeting. This puts her on the defensive. Oh no, he knows. But no time to explore the scene further as we jump to Lucy waking up in the vault-tec room. I will reiterate here that we do not know how much time has passed, as space and time mean nothing to these writers. After all, Ghoul Howard said that when Lucy woke up, she would be back in Vault 33, which, according to Google Maps, would take 4 days, ignoring the whole Khan country thing and having to take detours to stay safe, etc, etc. Yet we are expected to believe that this is happening at the same time as the Ghoul Howard scenes, which means it is the same day as the end of the last episode, maybe by a couple of hours. Anyway, not expecting to be in a vault-like room, Lucy looks at a yellow dress by a mirror and at herself, clearly supposed to show where she could have been to where she is now, before finding a note from Hank. Deciding not to follow the instructions, she bursts out into the corridor and we hear the sounds of marching boots. Peering round the corner, Lucy sees 2 Legionnaires. Oh no. Has Vault-tec been taken over by the Legion? She grabs a nearby fire extinguisher and we get a wide shot. Pause. You can see the 2 men marching in the previous shot, and they reach the penultimate strut in the wall. Then you hear 8 footsteps, and the next scene has them still walking up to that one strut. As this is not the Lancelot scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the only conclusion is that these 2 men just stopped, started walking in a circle, and then continued forward. Regardless, Lucy goes to attack, but the 2 Legionnaires stop and smile, greeting her with a good morning. The 2 men carry on, and we see they have mind control devices in their necks. Another pause here. How has Hank captured these 2 men and put the tech on their necks? Everything the show has told us is that Mr. Chicken Man was the first one to have it work on, with implication it was only the night before that he appeared in Ghoul Howard's bathroom. There has also been no sign of any Legion presence around Vegas itself, with them only hanging out on a hill, near a ruined shack, and in their camp by a grassy knoll. Lucy, fire extinguisher in hand, decides not to follow these 2 and goes the other way, coming across an office scene with 2 guys politely offering each other a drink before spotting her and offering her a coffee instead. Going off the music playing, this next scene is supposed to be a comedy joke time scene, with everyone operating in near perfect sync, producing mind control devices as Lucy walks between them. Note here, we get a close-up of one of the men working on a device, and all he is doing is tapping it with a screwdriver. Everyone is acting far too civil, and it is freaking Lucy out, so she walks through to where a sign reads, "Elevator." Her fire extinguisher, having morphed into a pair of scissors, she does not approach an elevator, but instead a demonstration room, and after a quick peek goes inside. Jump scare! Hank was hiding in the corner of the room the whole time, making a bowl of nuts. Not having noticed her approach, Hank stops when he does, and starts asking about All Quiet on the Western Front, which Lucy says she never finished. Hank uses the book as a parallel to life on the surface, people fighting each other over what is seemingly the most mundane thing. He keeps trying to start conversations with his daughter, eventually turning his back on her to turn off a record player, at which point Lucy leaps into action and holds the scissors up to his neck before reading him his rights. This seems to relieve Hank a bit, as he says he was worried the world had changed her, before fishing out some handcuffs from a drawer in order to make the rest official. Why are there handcuffs in the kitchen/dining room drawer? Don't think about it. Move on to the next scene. The next scene in question, barring Hank's continued attempt to try and spark up a nostalgic conversation, is Maximus and Thaddeus out in the desert. We can see a fire from the crashed airship, but the other 3 appear to have just left the area, or potentially could also be part of that fire. The sand dune is obscuring the view either way. Anyway, Thaddeus gets out of the armour as it has a tracker in it, so leaving it in the sand is the best way to not be followed. Thaddeus, being very low IQ in this scene, keeps on asking if they're going to sell the cold fusion pill, despite calling it a sacred remnant. This is because he's greedy, you see, as was seen from his scene with the kids in the bottling plant, working 22 hours a day to get caps off bottles. Maximus is aghast, saying that they are not selling it, as the 2 get up and walk off, leaving a nice trail in the still sand for them to be tracked when someone turns up to recover the armour. Jump to night time, and the pair have found some ruins to camp outside of, and Thaddeus is still insisting on selling the artefact. Maximus still says no, and they will give it to the right person, like the Vault girl he met and wanted to have sex with. Thaddeus says that it's very easy to be a good person when you have everything you need, so they should sell it, and then be good people. Thaddeus says he never met good people as he was born in the boneyard, but Maximus, you see, he was born in Shady Sands, so he got to meet good people. a teeny tiny flaw in this that requires stepping outside the show. The boneyard is Los Angeles. It is the Angels' boneyard. In the show, Shady Sands is in the boneyard, so Thaddeus' fly farm he grew up on would have only been a couple of hours walk away from Shady Sands. This is just a reference for people who remember the surface details to point at. Anyway, with that scene done, and presumably still being the same night, we jump back to Freeside with Ghoul Howard slowly going feral on the pole. This presents us with another problem. You see, this pole is right outside of the Atomic Wrangler Hotel and Casino, and the Ghoul Howard has been here for hours. You would expect the bartender, not liking Ghoul Howard much, would still have come outside to get the writhing, growling, screaming man off the pole right outside his front door, as it would be something of a detriment to custom to stay there. Still, Ghoul Howard is repeating to himself things about his life to try and stave off going feral before trying to pull himself up and off the pole. Slowly, inch by inch, he goes up, reaching his hand to grasp the top before, oh no, an attack of the feralness causes him to lose his grip and he slides back down to the bottom again. Not that he could have managed anyway, as pulling himself up would have stopped when the top of the pole was level with his body, meaning he would have had to let go in order to reach behind to try and then push himself up over the top. But regardless of all that, he passes out, and we get to see a large fellow turn up, cleanly cut the pole, and then pull Ghoul Howard off before dragging him away to a church. Back now with the Incest Club and joke time. People are lining up with family histories to try and get in, with one being turned away because triple cousins is just not good enough anymore. Reg is chatting to a woman who is not impressed, before going and sitting at a piano. There is a perspective change, and a grainy filter comes over the scene as Reg starts to play the piano, and the whole party gets swinging. Interspersed with these is Betty with Vault Security approaching the party. We find out this was another joke time, as Reg was not playing the piano, he was just pressing some keys with his index finger, and while there was no swinging party going on, it was all in his head, you see. Suddenly, Vault Security storms in and declares the club has been dissolved by order of Betty. Reg demands to speak to Betty, who steps forward, and the two start to argue, with Reg standing up for the people of 33 and saying that those from 31 just don't feel right, and all the members of the club stand with him. But that is enough of 33, as we are now going to 32, with Davy asking where Woody is, as they're supposed to play checkers. Davy leans in close to Chester conspiratorially, asking if he wants to know the truth. The truth is a joke! Davy doesn't even like checkers. This is because he's a brain-dead old man who can't figure out that a mirrored vault, you just go the other way that you normally would in order to navigate. Anyway, he thinks about asking Stephanie, saying that she is Chester's wife, which he denies. But you see, unbeknownst to him, Stephanie has planned for them to get married the very next day, and not told him. This makes Chester, I don't know, confused, concerned. His face tells me nothing. Away from the vaults, and we're back with Ghoul Howard being hoisted up, and we see that the pole hole has changed location again. It is now on his left. He wakes up as whoever it was who dragged him there pulls out a chunk of uranium and shoves it in Ghoul Howard's pole hole. He says there is a war coming, and he wants to recruit Ghoul Howard to fight against the Enclave. Yes, folks, despite all we have seen of them in this entire show being a dog breeding facility, they are back, and apparently a threat to everybody. Ghoul Howard turns down the offer, and the worst CGI super mutant I have ever seen knocks him out for it. Pre-war again, and Howard's having an argument over what was revealed in the earlier pre-war scene. Barbara says it is all for Janie and there are worse people out there than her, to which Cooper retorts, who could be worse than her? This makes her cry as he leaves. Jump to a different pre-war scene as we are back in the boardroom, with Barbara asking Betty to get everything they have on cold fusion. She leaves to get in the lift, and we get Wilzig, who was just standing in that lift for some reason, waiting for her to get in. How is he alive here and also alive in 219 years' time? Well, for the same reason Moldava is. Either nobody knows, or nobody cares on the writing team. He calls her replaceable and threatens her life if she does not do her job. We now get a point in time for when this is set, before the shadowy meeting, as she is told to tell them all the only way to get results is to drop the bomb themselves. Now, back to the hotel, with Howard's discussing the events that were just shown, with Barbara saying she does not know who controls vault-tec, which is funny as we have been previously told that vault-tec controls the US government, and the Enclave are the remnants of that government, but that's a sidetrack. Cooper decides he's going to do something about all this, and leaves to find Hank. Finding Hank at the bar, we jump back to the vault-tec facility with Lucy and Hank. She is leading him out to the mind control production line when one of them drops what they were holding in shock. But Hank says it is okay. Lucy asks where they came from, and Hank goes to introduce them. Marjorie used to be a murderer, but now sharpens pencils. Sherman and Gregory, still standing by the coffee, were opposing tribes. And Rita used to cook people for the Legion. Still, Lucy tries to get Hank out and demands the doors be left open for everyone to leave when they've gone. Convenience time as Chicken Man comes into the office with two men, one Legion and one being Old Man Ranger, and asks if they should push the button in the room that will fix them. Lucy says no, but the Legion Man breaks free and a fight breaks out, with Legion Man hammering staples into Old Man Ranger's head. Lucy is left with a quandary: let them kill each other or push the button. She pushes the button, and the two then start being friendly to each other. Now that this scene is done, I will reiterate a previous point I made. How did Hank get so many people? As far as the timeline of the show goes as presented, it has only been a single day since Hank got the mind control tech working on Mr. Chicken Man, and yet here not only has he got an office full of people from up above, 4 of them have been kidnapped from the Legion, but none of the puppets seem to engage in violence, but they've also got Old Man Ranger, who, when last encountered, was outside of Prim. Unless the scenes thus far with Hank have happened weeks before every other scene in the show, then there is zero way he would have been able to not only kidnap people from the surrounding Vegas area, but also Legion camps, and go all the way to Prim for the NCR. This show has a serious problem with making time-space work, and instead seems to just fling it out the window in order to make scenes happen. Anyway, back to the hotel room, and Cooper gives Hank a drugged drink. Waiting for him to pass out, he opens the case only to find it as a bait and switch. There is no cold fusion in there, but an extractor gun. At this point, Barbara enters, takes the gun, and extracts cold fusion from Hank's neck. Problem: we see it is still glowing, and we also saw that when Wilsey had it in his neck as well, that it was plainly visible through the skin, but this has not been shown to be the case with Hank. Anyway, away from there and onto the final scene of the episode. Dog has run up to Thaddeus and Maximus and wants them to follow. Why? Because the next episode needs to happen, no other reason. You see, Maximus has not had an interaction with Dog as I can recall, and Thaddeus left him in a vending machine. There is zero reason Dog would seek out these two, yet Dog has. And they follow only to find Ghoul Howard dumped at the Mojave Mission School and not feral, despite it being over 24 hours since his last dose of anti-feral drugs and having been shown turning the previous day. Well, that was episode 6. This one is getting a 3, although I am sorely tempted to give it a 2. For everything that happened, there was almost no plot progression, and most scenes left me scratching my head trying to figure out how they came to be. People do not act like people, just background extras told to walk around in order to make the Ghoul Howard scenes work. There are too many people at the underground vault-tec facility for the amount of time that's passed, as Hank had only a day or two ahead of Lucy and Ghoul Howard based on the mushed body in episode 1. People teleport or do things that make no sense, like the production line room. If the device to activate the mind control is in that room, then why did Mr. Chicken Man wheel 2 guys in and say they're not fixed yet and ask what to do? Or is there a proper fixing room, but it was just decided to take them to where Lucy and Hank were, where there just happens to be another fixing machine? The Thanius and Maximus scenes are just inoffensive, as nothing really happens in them. Anyway, everything it got wrong. West Coast Super Mutants do not look like Ron Super Pearl as presented in this episode. The Boneyard is the entirety of Los Angeles, not a location within it. As detailed in Fallout 2, water control chips were shipped in boxes of 5, as they were expected to fail but were supposed to always be backups when that happened. Not much to go over there, as not much happened. And there we have it. Only 2 episodes to go, and I honestly hope they pick up on the plot and we don't end up with a case of 4 to 5 of these episodes being easily condensed into just 2. So, thank you for watching, and have a good day.